Hi, this is Chuck Myers, and I just wanted to make this video to give you an idea of what Sony has out there in their current line of cameras. I think Sony's an important camera company to check out right now. They're doing some really exciting things. Current crop of cameras is fantastic, both in the consumer, prosumer, and professional level. I have a pretty good selection of their bodies and higher end lenses here to show you today, just to give you an idea of what they have. Again, you probably, whether you're looking at switching to Sony from something, a Canon, Nikon, or other brand of camera, or if you're just starting out and looking for a camera, Sony's got some great stuff, really great stuff right now. So first, let's just look at some of the bodies they have. What I have here is a Sony A99, a Sony A77 Mark II, and this is the Sony A7 Mark II camera. This camera just replaced the Sony A7, which I'm actually shooting this video with right now. All right, what Sony has now is they've basically split into two mounts, the A mount and the E mount. The A mount cameras are cameras like the A99, the A77, and then down below these cameras, they have the A58 and I think the Alpha 3000 now. That's their A mount system, and then their newer cameras, it's actually their mirrorless system, is the Sony A7 series. That's the A7, the A7 Mark II, the A7S, and the A7R. We'll get into those in a minute. Right now, I'm going to talk about the A mount cameras. As I said, this is the Sony A99 and the A77 Mark II. These are both fantastic cameras. The A99 is a little bit older. It's been out since 2012. And the A77, this is the Mark II version. It was just released late last year. The difference in these two bodies is the A77 Mark II, the A77 Mark II is a crop sensor, and the A99 is a full frame sensor. The A77 Mark II is a fantastic action camera. It fires off at max 12 frames per second, which is just incredible. And depending on the mode, it'll shoot between 8 frames per second and 12 frames per second. The autofocus system is fast and accurate. It's a wonderful camera, and I use this camera a lot when I'm shooting sports, football games especially. It's very, very good. It's good in a lot of situations, but it's really great for fast action. And if you are shooting sports, that crop sensor gives you a little extra reach on your lenses. That's always helpful too. The A99, the full frame camera. So with the full frame, you're going to get a little better low light performance than you do with the A77. This has a higher max ISO, and it gives pretty good performance up to ISO 3200, ISO 6400. Pretty usable depending on what you want to do with it. The A77, you get an ISO in that ISO 1600, 3200 range. You do start to lose some detail, so I like to stay at least below that. But the A99 camera will perform a little bit better in low light situations, mostly attributing to that full frame sensor. The A99 doesn't shoot as fast as the A77. It's got I believe a 6 frame per second. That's still pretty darn good and comparable with a lot of other high-end cameras out there. It doesn't focus quite as fast, but it still focuses well. It's just not quite. I've used this for sports in action too. No problem at all. I've shot a lot with it. So it's a great all-purpose camera. Good video. They're both good video quality. Recent firmware update on the A77 Mark II, Sony, the firmware 1.10, they now added the XAVCS video codec, which basically just, it's a higher bit rate, gathering more information, better quality. So that was a nice firmware update from Sony. Any other differences in the cameras? There's really not much. The A99 that has a built-in GPS. They nixed that in the A77 Mark II. Now the A77 Mark II does have Wi-Fi, which is nice because probably at least my favorite feature in using that, not only can you transfer pictures wirelessly to your phone, even using an iPhone with the Sony Play Memories app. But you can now you can remote trigger it. You can change all the settings. It's really handy. It really comes in handy. So you don't necessarily need the cable releases anymore, or if you don't want to use the timer, you can use that. You can use that app and shoot wirelessly using the Wi-Fi. The A99 is, like I said, is a little bit older camera. Doesn't have that feature. And as I said, these A-mount cameras going down through the 858 and on down. I mean, they basically share similar technologies. What you lose frame rate. You get a less sophisticated autofocus system, things like that. Really not a big deal. They're all great cameras. I would gladly use any of them. Look at Sony's latest and greatest. That's their mirrorless camera system, the A7 series. This is the A7 Mark II. Recently came out. Fantastic camera. The body design is a little bit different than what the A7 was. It's a little beefier, thicker body, a little bit heavier, deeper grip. Just really feels great. They moved some buttons around, relocated the shutter button. I have nothing but good things to say about this camera. Again, it is mirrorless. That allows it to be smaller. It doesn't have that the SLT technology that they use in their A-mount. There's no mirror whatsoever. Very, very nice. All of Sony's cameras use an electronic viewfinder, which is one of my favorite features of the Sony system, because you're seeing what the sensor sees, or you're not shooting blind. Traditional cameras, I know a lot of purists, traditionalists, probably may not like electronic viewfinders, but personally I love them, because like I said, you can turn the settings, your shutter, your aperture, your ISO, whatever you want to do. You can make the adjustments, and you see it real time right in the viewfinder. So you're seeing exactly, you're going to see your exposure exactly as it's going to come out in the picture. I just find it really helpful. It's great for shooting manual mode, which I love to do, in the other creative settings that are on the cameras. I just love it. So back to the A7 series. Again, they have the A7, the A7S, and the A7R. The difference in those cameras mainly is the sensor. The A7 and the A7 Mark II have a 24 megapixel sensor. That's similar to what's in the A99 and the A77. Those A-mount cameras, they also have 24 megapixel sensors. The A7S is their low light camera. It was a real innovation when they came out with it in the middle of last year. Just fantastic low light performance. It has a 13 megapixel sensor, which basically you have bigger pixels on the sensor, on that full frame sensor. They can gather more light, more sensitivity, and that camera is just phenomenal in low light. And it's also become a very popular video camera. The A7 Mark II, 24 megapixel sensor, pretty standard, high quality, high dynamic range, very, very good. And then the other A7 series is the A7R. It has a 36 megapixel sensor, so that's a great landscape camera. Collects an awful lot of detail, very high resolution, very good camera. The focusing systems on these mirrorless cameras have not been as good, but they are getting better. The focusing system on this A7 Mark II is markedly better than it was on the A7. I've used this camera successfully for some youth sporting events, just general action shots, snowboarding, skiing, things like that, and it's just done fantastic. So, it's probably not as good as the A77 Mark II, the focusing system, but it's very, very good, and it's really improved a lot. This A7 Mark II is it's a fantastic all-around camera. The A7S and the A7R do not have fantastic autofocus systems. They're contrast only. They're a little bit slower. They can still get the job done, but they're by no means considered action cameras. Last, on the A7, this A7 series and this A7 Mark II, another really neat thing is some of the technology they have built in. They do have Wi-Fi built in, and you can access basically Sony's camera app store and download a lot of different apps. There's a time-lapse app. You have your remote shutter. They have a lot of neat things. And I hope it takes off for them. It's pretty innovative thing they're doing, developing an app store for the cameras. Again, using that Play Memories app on your iPhone or your Android phone, you can make all the adjustments right on the phone and wirelessly fire the shot. So very nice, excellent cameras. Can't say enough about them. These bodies are all wonderful. All right, let's take a look at Sony's glass. Sony gets knocked a lot for not having the lens selection of Canon or Nikon, and they may lack in total number of lenses a little bit, but there's no lacking in quality whatsoever. You know, you're probably only going to get a handful of lenses to fill out your camera system, and you know, Sony's got the basics, the lenses, your everyday lenses. They have fantastic choices in all the ranges. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I have here. I'm going to start with the A mounts. Again, these are the bigger mounts. They mount on the A99 and the A77 and that series of cameras. We've got this is the big boy here. This is the Sony 70-400 G2. So this just replaced the it's the original 70-400 G lens sometime early last year, I think. It's a great lens. It's big, it's heavy, great reach, 70-400. Variable aperture, not bad though, f4 to f5.6. That's from 70-400. It does telescope, so it does extend and get pretty long, but you know, I find this pretty handy when it can shorten down. I can fit it into my smaller low pro bag if I have to. Great lens, great piece of glass. This one here, this is the BMW of lenses. This is the Sony 70-200 f2.8 G2 lens. Fantastic lens. I had the original. I had the original G series. Came from the old Minolta line. It too was a great lens, but this lens is fantastic. It's the picture clarity, detail are fantastic. It focuses fast. The background blowout, the bokeh is creamy smooth. I can't say enough about this lens. It's a great portrait lens. It's great for sports. You can shoot 2.8, great for indoor sports. My favorite lens by far. It's a great lens. Not cheap, but it's a great lens. Okay, last A-mount lens I have here is the Sony Zeiss 24-70. Classic lens, been around a long time. It's actually rumored to be getting replaced here soon with a Mark II version. But this lens is just fantastic. I mean, it's a big, heavy lens. Constant f2.8 aperture. Great detail, beautiful lens. Love using it. That's the Zeiss 24-70. Now let's talk about the E-mount lenses. So for their mirrorless camera system, they've developed. This is the new E-mount. These are called FE lenses, which is these lenses they're full frame lenses, so you don't get any vignetting, no cropping of the image. Full frame lenses, they're a lot smaller. So for comparison, this is the Zeiss 24-70 FE lens. You can see it's quite a bit smaller and lighter than the 24-70, the A-mount lens. The difference is the A-mount is an f2.8 lens all the way through. The E-mount is an f4 lens, so it's not as fast. I think the picture quality, image quality is equal, but I do miss that extra stop every now and then, particularly shooting indoors. Not often, anything outdoors. I don't mind shooting the f4 versus the f2.8. No big deal when there's lots of light. But when you're limited on light, I do find that that 2.8 does still come in handy. That reminds me, speaking of shooting when there's not lots of light, this I mentioned how the A7S is a fantastic camera for that. This A7 Mark II, I missed a big selling point of it, was the 5-axis in-body image stabilizer. So what that means is the stabilization system is built into the body on the sensor. Same way the A99 and the A77 are. They also both have in-body image stabilization. This is a newly developed system though that Sony's incorporated into the A7 Mark II, and it really makes up for not having that 2.8 aperture. So I use this with the 24-70 f4. I can shoot handheld at night down to 1/15 of a second. I mean, crazy low shutter speeds to shoot handheld, and still shoot at a reasonable ISO. So that technology, that development, the in-body image stabilization on the A7 series has made a world of difference, and it has made me not miss having that f2.8 quite as much. Last lens I have here is the Sony. This is the 70-200 in the E-mount version. So this is the 70-200 FE. F4 aperture. This is compared to the A-mount, which was the f2.8. You can see there's a little bit of size difference. That f4 is a little bit smaller, but it's still a pretty nice beefy lens. Build quality is excellent. Image quality is excellent. Focus is fast. I don't love it as much as the 70-200 2.8, but it is a very, very nice lens. It's everything I have here. The other FE lens I'm using is the awesome the 55-1.8. I'm actually recording this video using that lens right now. So I've got the A7 with the 55-1.8. That lens is fantastic on these E-mount cameras. Sony does make an adapter. It's the LA EA4 adapter, which will let you mount the A-mount lenses onto the A7 mirrorless series of cameras. I don't have one of those here right now, but they make it and it does work. All right, well, that about wraps up what I wanted to cover here with the Sony cameras and lenses that I have on hand. I just wanted to give you an idea of what Sony had out there. In my opinion, they're really pushing the industry forward. The technology they're incorporating into these cameras, their image sensor technology is second to none. And I just think they have a lot going on right now, and they really deserve to take a look at. They deserve a lot of credit for what they're doing right now, and I'm certainly enjoying using their gear. So thank you, Sony, and keep up the good work.